Welcome, and thanks for joining me on Talk the Walk. I'm Sarah Wong. This week, Chief Executive Carrie Lam returns to the program to discuss Hong Kong's economic and political directions as she nears the end of her 5-year term. Madam Chief Executive, thank you very much for speaking with us, especially after your accident last month. First of all, I want to wish you a speedy, full recovery and good health in the future. I was wondering, has your experience given you any fresh perspective on your life?
Not really, because this is not the first time I fractured my limb. I fractured my arm, I fractured my leg previously. But I would sort of advise every one of us, even in good times, let's be a bit more careful and vigilant.
Yeah, so has there occurred difficulties in your working life?
Well, definitely, because this time I hurt my right arm, so it makes dressing, writing, or even signing, because I got a lot of documents to sign, so that's a bit difficult.
I'm pretty sure you still stay on top of your job. Now, speaking of the top priorities of the government right now, that's COVID strategy and reopening. Recently, the government is canceling quarantine exemptions for top executives and most diplomatic personnel. Well, that's a massive goodwill gesture on your part. How confident are you that these measures are enough to reassure the leaders in Beijing that Hong Kong is safe?
Well, let me just clarify that these are not sort of gesture measures. These are essential measures in order to bring Hong Kong's anti-COVID-19 strategy to be more in line with the mainland practices. And as a result of that alignment, then we will be able to better convince the mainland authorities that opening up some travel with Hong Kong basically is allow Hong Kong people to go into the mainland without being subject to 14 days or 21 days quarantine will not significantly increase the risk. And I hope people will understand it, because it has taken our country so much efforts and in a way also pay a huge price for keeping China safe. And that's 1.4 billion people there. So this very vigilant and sometimes a bit tight approach in the mainland of China is very essential. So for Hong Kong SAR trying to get some more relaxed treatment in going into the mainland of China, then of course we have to do better on our part. So the various measures that we have introduced in recent days are intended for that purpose. And I can say that we are making good progress. Since a bilateral meeting in the latter part of September, we have already exchanged notes, so to speak, on what their advice to us was and what our response to their advice was. And as a result, we have also already implemented some measures. So I would expect this toing and flowing discussion and exchange process to continue for a while before a decision will be made. But I must also put in a rider that even if we were to achieve resumption of some travel into the mainland without quarantine, that will be very gradual. In other words, it will be subject to a quota. It will be prioritized according to the essential needs of the people who need to travel into the mainland. And whoever wants to benefit from this quarantine-free arrangement will have to meet certain conditions.
But the mainland, last time I checked, overnight, they have 87 local cases because there's a fresh Delta wave that's engulfing across the country. When Hong Kong here, we only have 7 imported cases. So is it necessary that Hong Kong is riskier in that moment, in that regards, by opening travel with the mainland?
Well, that very simple comparison is not entirely legitimate, because our country is such a vast country. And sporadic, it is actually good that on both sides we have accepted that sporadic cases are inevitable unless we close our border altogether. In other words, there will be no overseas traveler into Hong Kong or into the mainland of China. As long as there is overseas travel, both in terms of passengers and cargo, perhaps some sporadic cases of risen from overseas infection will be inevitable, because if we look around the world, apparently another surge is now evident. So what is important, that's why I said the measures were introduced to demonstrate the confidence in the system in order to fight any such sporadic cases. That's why we need much better contact tracing. We need more frequent COVID-19 testing. We need sufficient quarantine facilities. We need more robust hospitalization discharge criteria. So all these are really to strengthen the system, not to meet a requirement that it has always to be zero at any point in time, because whether it's in Hong Kong or in the mainland of China, this is not realistic. There will be cases.
Yeah, I get that. So are you saying that, just to make sure, are you saying that the current fresh wave in the mainland will not in any way jeopardize the current talk with the mainland authorities to resume cross-border travel?
No, it will not, because we are talking about Hong Kong people going into the mainland. But if cases in the mainland of China become more widespread, then what will be affected will be the existing arrangement for mainland people or mainland residents to come to Hong Kong under the two schemes. One is return to Hong Kong for Hong Kong residents, which is quarantine-free. The other is come to Hong Kong for non-Hong Kong residents from the mainland, again coming into quarantine-free. We have been running these two schemes quite smoothly in recent months, but if there are high-risk areas in the mainland of China, then those high-risk areas will be excluded from the two schemes.
Now, I'm sure you're aware that the global finance industry, foreign businesses, chambers of commerce, they continue to pile on pressure for global travel to resume here in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong, in effect, is affected by the strict restrictions that are still in place. For example, the third quarter GDP rose at a slower pace than expected, and Australia surpassed Hong Kong in its number of IPOs for the first time in 2 years. Does it feel like a no-win situation when Beijing thinks our pandemic measures are too loose, while international businesses say they're too tight?
Well, in a way, you can say that we are put in a pretty difficult situation. But I have this to say to the overseas business community, because your program is an English-speaking program, and being a business
to the world,
being a business channel, I want to say this. Now, Hong Kong's strength lies, of course, in our own competitive edges, the rule of law, independence of judiciary, and connectivity. But more and more, Hong Kong's value and Hong Kong's strengths lie in being the gateway into the mainland of China. Many of these overseas corporations, they choose to set up headquarters, regional offices in Hong Kong is because of our proximity into China, and being a part of China that we enjoy favorable policies, especially now we have the 14th Five-Year Plan, we have the Greater Bay Area, we have the expanded Qianhai, which provides a lot of opportunities for Hong Kong companies, including overseas companies. So their priority, likewise, is also to be able to go into the mainland. So I have been talking to chambers, and they said that we are also very desperate to go into the mainland without quarantine so that we could inspect their branch offices in Guangdong, in other places, and report to their headquarters. So we actually have a common objective, but of course from time to time, from a very personal perspective, these business people would like to travel back to their country and then come back to Hong Kong without quarantine. But at the moment, I made it very clear in public that the priority is to resume some normal, gradual travel with the mainland of China. And I hope that they will understand. Hong Kong's competitive strengths will not be eroded just by a COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic will go away sooner or later. And so please be patient, and let's work together to resume travel with the mainland. And let's hope that the world will do better in terms of combating COVID-19. Individual countries will do better in controlling COVID-19 so that in terms of our risk assessment, these countries could be put on the lowest category, which is a Group C. A Group C country requires 7-day quarantine, which most people said that it would be acceptable, 7 days quarantine in a hotel. But unfortunately, we are not seeing that even for places which we love to travel and we are very close business partners like Singapore. We are not yet in that situation to put these countries on a lower category.
Yeah, I think Singapore just give up that zero tolerance strategy and try to move on with their lives right now. Well, I know the government has made it very clear that it prioritizes integration and cooperation with mainland China. And in fact, in policy address, you've said that the Hong Kong economy has always been intertwined with China's development. But look at the mainland right now. China's economic recovery is losing steam. The Commerce Ministry, I'm sure you know, they even told the public to stock up on food and essentials. And energy prices are soaring because of the electricity shortage. I'm just wondering, Hong Kong is a free market. Are there any safeguards to buffer potential instability in the mainland economy as integration deepens?
Well, that is illustrated in our making Hong Kong far more connected with the outside world. In this term of government, I myself and my Secretary for Commerce Economic Development have put a lot more attention in creating partnerships with other countries. You look at ASEAN. In this term of government, we have signed a free trade agreement with the 10 member nations of ASEAN. Now, we are aspiring to join RCEP. And we have set up additional offices in Thailand. We have just opened another economic and trade office in Dubai. In other words, we are eyeing not only the ASEAN countries, but also the Middle East countries. So that is perhaps a way in order to create a more stability in case one part of our economic landscape is sort of encountering some problems.
Yeah, I'm very glad you bring that up because I realized in 2019, the SAR government said it's open to joining the CPTPP. Now, China has officially applied, Taiwan as well. Will Hong Kong follow suit?
We always have an open mind because we are one of the freest economies in the world and we love to have all these alliances and remove all this tariff and so on. So, but our first priority now is RCEP. Because RCEP is very important to us. Secondly, is because we already have very good foundation built in RCEP. We have FTA with the 10 member nations. We have FTA with New Zealand. We have FTA with Australia. We have an FTA in the name of CIPA with the mainland. So it's really Japan and Korea. So joining RCEP will immediately bring Korea and Japan into our bilateral network. But of course, thereafter, we could join all the other alliances. We are also looking in Latin America. I've been meeting with the Latin American countries because they also have a Pacific alliance of the 4 countries.
So we're still waiting and see. Okay, well, let's pick up the discussion after the break. Talk the Walk will be back in a moment. Don't go away.